invite you to pause your conversations for the moment. I love it. You're all ready to go. You just want to talk. Hello, welcome. Great. Pick up those conversations again when it is donut time. Have we said that there are donuts? There are donuts. The secret to the donuts is to make sure you get one before the kids come back from their groups. I'm just saying, get a donut before the kids and the youth come flooding back in, or else you may struggle. Get yourself a donut. It's lovely to have you here this morning. A warm welcome from me as well. If you are new or visiting, I'm Sophie. I'm the vicar here at St. Matt's. The word going around Plymouth is that I am the new lady vicar of St. Matt's. So I feel like Lady Sophie is in the house. And if you would like to start treating me with a bit more respect, I'm up for that as well. Lady Sophie, the vicar. We're going to have a reading from the Bible shortly. We always love to read the Bible when we come together in church because we believe it's not just a book of old stories. Actually, as we read the Bible, it comes alive to us today, and God speaks to us through that word today. And so that's certainly my hope, is that as we read and look at the passage we're going to look at today, that God has a word for each one of us, wherever it is we are in our lives today, however it is we've been coming here today, whatever we've come for. I'm hoping that there will be something we can really connect in. But I'm going to introduce you to our cast before we have the reading. I'm going to introduce you to Jesus. Hopefully you've heard of him before now, but Jesus is going to feature in our reading this morning. And by the time our story takes place, Jesus has got a bit of a reputation already. He's got a bit of a reputation as a great teacher. And we see that people loved to come and to listen to Jesus, and that he could hold a crowd listening to him. And they would often say that he was somebody who spoke with authority, with somebody who talked like he really knew what he was talking about. He also gets a bit of a reputation for being a powerful healer. And it seems like almost wherever he goes, people come to him for healing, and he heals people of all sorts of diseases. And he has such compassion for people as well, that people come to him with all kinds of problems in life. He's also comes to be known as a bit of a controversial figure. When he's teaching, he often seems to say things or have conversations with powerful leaders or religious leaders of his day that they don't like very much. He's quite challenging. And so he gets a bit of a reputation for being a bit controversial. But also, he's starting to sound, and some people are starting to wonder if Jesus might be a bit of a revolutionary. Because in Jesus' day, the Jews, the Jewish nation, were an occupied people. And the Romans had come and their land had been conquered, and the Romans were in charge. And there had been this hope for a long time that God would send them a new leader around whom they could rally, and then they could overthrow the Romans. And people had begun to wonder, could Jesus be that person? Could he be the revolutionary that they've been waiting for? Now, because of all this, I guess it's not too surprising that wherever Jesus goes, he seems to draw a bit of a crowd. So I'd like to introduce you to the crowd. They are going to feature as well today. And Jesus travels with a few people as well. He's got his disciples, he's got some supporters with him. But as he goes from town to town, word seems to go ahead of him. They seem to kind of have these rumors. Oh, Jesus is coming. There's this guy, Jesus, and he's a great teacher. He's a great healer. You've got to come and see. And I'm guessing because there wasn't Netflix at this point in our lives, people came out to see him, to see if he really was an interesting kind of person. So we often have crowds, and they gather around him and they journey for a bit of the journey, I guess, until he stops and does some teaching and they're ready for the teaching, or he stops and does some healing, and that's what they've been waiting for. Occasionally we see that Jesus moves off to more quiet places, to have a bit of space. I'm sure we can appreciate that. But often there's a crowd near Jesus. But remember, crowds can be fickle. Crowds can be cheering one minute and booing the next, and they can turn like that. So keep your eye on the crowd partway through our story. And then finally, I'd like to introduce you to Zacchaeus. Zacchaeus is in our story today. We don't know a lot about him, but the little that we do know tells us a lot about him. If this was a pantomime, when Zacchaeus comes onto stage, you'd all boo him. He's that kind of character in our story. Two of the things we do hear about him, two of the main things, is that he's a chief tax collector. And because of that, he's wealthy. Now, I've just said that in the days of Jesus, the Jewish nation were under Roman rule, and the Romans wanted people to pay their taxes. Of course, everyone wants us to pay our taxes. But the Romans would tax the people, and the way that they would do that was that they would get a local person, a Jewish person, to take charge of the taxes for that area. And they would be responsible for gathering the tax in from the people and making sure the Romans got the amount they needed. But it wasn't a salaried position. The tax collectors basically worked on a form of commission, which was if they could collect more tax than that was owed to the Romans, they could keep the extra. So these tax collectors, they had to be pretty good at fleecing people, basically, at getting money out of them and at getting the amount that the Romans needed, but actually overcharging them and being able to keep it. Now, Zacchaeus wasn't just any old tax collector. He was a chief tax collector, which means not only was he really good at being a tax collector, he was so good he'd got promoted. And so now, not only is he collecting money off the ordinary people in the cheap seats, thanks for that, Sally, but not only is he doing that, he's also getting money off the other tax collectors. He's been such a good tax collector that he's a chief tax collector. And so he is wealthy as well. I was trying to kind of think what this might look like. Like, was he suddenly sort of putting on a new extension to his house and driving home in a new BMW or something, or donkey or whatever it was that they would have as like their status symbol? And I was trying to think, how would this land with us today? What's the equivalent? And I was thinking about how, these past few winters in particular, we've all been so careful about our energy use, about our electricity and our gas and our heating, because we know that it's been so expensive. And we also know that there's this new term, fuel poverty, to describe people who are living on such a tight budget that they are so afraid of turning on a light or cooking their dinner. And so I was thinking, I imagine the situation would be a bit like, here we all are really, really trying hard to not use our electricity too much because we can't afford it. And then we hear, don't we, about the CEOs and the whatsits who just seem to earn millions and still are getting their bonuses. And imagine if out the window of your house, you could see the mansion of one of the CEOs. And even as you're struggling to work out whether or not you can afford to put your oven on for your dinner, you can see their floodlit tennis courts and heated swimming pool. And I'm guessing that was a bit like for Zacchaeus, that actually as he gets more and more wealthy, he's doing that at the expense of other people. Other people are desperately trying to have enough money to live off, and he's taxing them, and he's getting the bonuses. That's what I was sort of thinking about. You can imagine then that tax collectors were deeply unpopular people. And they were seen as traitors. They had sold out. They were their own people. They were taking money off to give to the Romans. Anyway, we've introduced the cast. We're now going to have our reading, and Simon is going to bring that to us now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lady Sophie. Hello, good morning. I am Sophie's husband, and I believe she wants to call her Lady Sophie from now on. Is that right? Yes, here we go. This is from Luke chapter 19, and it's from verses 1 through to 10. On the screen behind me as I read along. So Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through. A man was there by the name of Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was wealthy. He wanted to see who Jesus was, but because he was short, he could not see over the crowd. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore fig tree to see him, since Jesus was coming that way. When Jesus reached the spot, he looked up to him and said to him, "Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I must stay at your house today." So he came down at once and welcomed him gladly. All the people saw this and began to mutter, "He's gone to be the guest of a sinner." But Zacchaeus stood up and said to the Lord, "Look, Lord, here and now I give half of my possessions to the poor, and if I have cheated anybody out of anything, I will pay back 4 times the amount." Jesus said to him, "Today salvation has come to this house, because this man too is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save the lost."
Amen. Thank you very much. I was just thinking, if I'm a lady, does that make you a lord? Let's hope not. I have a very special superpower that not many of you know about. I have a very magnetic personality. And not for everybody, it's true. However, I am a magnet for tall people. And I guarantee you, wherever I sit, in a cinema, a theatre, any crowded event where I choose to stand, within about 2 minutes of me picking my spot, I will suddenly have a wall of tall people who just, if you are challenged like I am, and you find yourself in any space where I am where you'd like to have a good view, find me, take about 10 paces that way, and you'll be fine. Absolutely fine. I guarantee you, everyone who is 6 foot and above is here in front of me. So I can totally relate to a story where someone needs to climb a tree to get a better view. Been there, done that. Like every good story, this story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Were you taught that at school? Your story's got to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And we're going to look through our story of Zacchaeus with a beginning, a middle, and an end. And at the beginning, we have Zacchaeus, who seems to have just kind of an interest in who Jesus was. I wonder why that was. What was it that he had heard about Jesus that brought him out? Was it some of those things that I talked about at the beginning? What was it that had kind of caught him, that had got him interested? But it's interesting because unlike most of the other people that we read about in the stories of Jesus, Zacchaeus doesn't come because he wants healing or because he wants to hear Jesus teach or to engage him in conversation or to really ask him anything at all. What we hear in the story is that Zacchaeus came because he wanted to see who Jesus was. Just see him? I've been thinking about that. Why doesn't he want more than to just see who Jesus was? Well, perhaps he was just a casual observer, we might say. Maybe he was just sort of vaguely interested, but I'm not sure that adds up because he doesn't behave like just a bit of an interested person, does he? Because the moment that he realizes he's not going to be able to see Jesus, he runs ahead and climbs a tree. He's quite determined to see Jesus. He's quite focused. If he was just a casual observer, I guess he'd shrug his shoulders. Oh, well, never mind, there'll be another time. It's the road from Jericho to Jerusalem. He'll be back. And he would be. But Zacchaeus doesn't do that. He's actually a bit more desperate. So I've been wondering, why did Zacchaeus just want to see Jesus? Is it possible that he didn't feel like he deserved much more than to just see Jesus? I mean, we know he's an unpopular guy. Presumably he knew he was an unpopular guy. Maybe he figures that Jesus wouldn't want to hang out with him either. That Jesus might not be interested in him, even if he's interested in Jesus. Maybe he figures he's not good enough or religious enough or some other kind of enough to actually demand anything of Jesus or ask Jesus to stop or speak to Jesus. Maybe he was afraid that Jesus might call him out on his lifestyle. Oh, I know you. You're the tax collector. You're the one taking all their money. Maybe he was a bit afraid of Jesus, not so sure. Maybe Zacchaeus is just really used to people rejecting him, or just really used to being on the outside, looking in. Maybe he's just not so sure that for all that he wants to see Jesus, that Jesus wants to see him. Whatever's going on, when we first meet Zacchaeus, we meet a chief tax collector who's wealthy and wants to see Jesus. For some reason, at the beginning of our story, he's interested in Jesus. And I guess I just wonder, as we gather today, as we do TryChurch today, maybe some of us are here today just because we're a little bit interested in Jesus, or a bit interested in church, or a bit interested in donuts. That's the beginning of our story. We've got Jesus walking along with the crowd. We've got Zacchaeus. He's run ahead. He's climbed a tree. I was thinking about this the other day because Claire and I were at a conference and we were walking through Kensington Gardens. And I was thinking what it would be like if suddenly there was a royal party coming through the gardens and a crowd around. And then you saw like a businessman or a businesswoman in like the kind of Armani suit and the Gucci shoes and the amazing suitcase or whatever climbing up a tree. I was just thinking how undignified it all sounds. But now we've got Zacchaeus and he's up a tree. Here he is. And here comes a twist that kind of brings us to the middle of the story. Because for Zacchaeus, who wanted to see who Jesus was, he ends up having an encounter with Jesus. And I love this. He wants to see Jesus, but when Jesus comes close, Jesus stops and looks up and sees Zacchaeus, calls him by name, and tells him to come out the tree, come out from where he's hiding, because Jesus wants to come to his house for dinner. He basically invites himself for dinner, let's face it. And I'm slightly surprised Zacchaeus didn't fall backwards out of that tree, right? Like, he wasn't expecting that, I'm sure of that. All he wanted to do was see Jesus, and things had got out of control. Suddenly, he's hosting a party of all the people in that crowd, all the people that Jesus has surrounding him. Jesus stops for Zacchaeus, calls Zacchaeus by name, and invites Zacchaeus to come and spend time with him. My own tree climbing experience is that it's always easier to go up than come down. So I do feel for Zacchaeus at this moment, because when he climbed up the tree, all eyes were on Jesus. And now that he's got to come down the tree, all eyes are on him. So I do feel for Zacchaeus, but he managed to get down that tree. Well done, Zacchaeus. And he has this most incredible encounter with Jesus. To eat with somebody in Jesus' day, it was the same as in ours. It's not just about the food. I don't imagine Jesus was walking along with a hungry tummy and thought, right, whose house is going to give me the best dinner? Well, the chief wealthy tax collector hiding in the tree, his house. He extends a hand of friendship to Zacchaeus, invites Zacchaeus to come and spend time with him over a meal. That's not just a 5-minute chat. That's not a coffee in Starbucks, right? To have a meal together. He invites Zacchaeus into community and friendship. Jesus does Zacchaeus a great honor in going to his house. After all, it's one thing to be invited to a garden party at Buckingham Palace. It's another thing if King Charles invites himself to your garden to eat your homemade scones, right? Yeah, nice to be invited. Jesus does Zacchaeus a great honor. And we don't know what they talked about. There's no record of their conversation. We've got no idea what Jesus and his disciples and Zacchaeus said as they sat and chatted together. But what we do know is that this encounter was life-changing for Zacchaeus. As a church, we still believe it is possible to have a life-changing encounter with Jesus. You don't have to climb a tree. But many of us would have stories, wouldn't we? Perhaps our stories have got a beginning and an encounter with Jesus in the middle. But we've got stories that we would love to share of finding that Jesus sees us, knows me by name, has invited me into friendship with him. And they're great stories of encountering Jesus and his great love and his great welcome. And so we come towards the end of our story, except I think the end of our story turns out to be a whole new beginning for Zacchaeus. We have Zacchaeus, who's got an interest in Jesus, who then has an encounter with Jesus. And then right at the end of our story, we see that his life has been changed by Jesus. Here is Zacchaeus, and he's been hosting Jesus, eating with Jesus. But there's some muttering and some murmuring from that crowd. Why is Jesus eating with him? Why would Jesus go to Zacchaeus' house? Why wouldn't he go to your house? You're better than Zacchaeus. Doesn't he know that Zacchaeus is a sinner? Sinner's kind of code for loser in those days, all right. Doesn't he know? But actually what they don't know is that Zacchaeus is a changed man. Something has changed. His encounter with Jesus has changed something. And he's suddenly here and he's declaring, interestingly, not to the crowd. He's not justifying himself to the crowd. He just says to Jesus, Jesus, here and now, I'm going to give half my possessions to the poor. Not sure how much he cared about the poor before, but suddenly he's a changed man. He's going to give half his possessions to the poor. And he says he's going to give, if he's cheated anyone, 4 times the amount he cheated them. He's not very good at maths for a tax collector. I don't quite know how he's going to manage it, but he's going to give half his possessions to the poor and he's going to pay everyone back 4 times the amount. Something has happened to him. What on earth has happened? Is he trying to prove himself? Is he trying to earn some acceptance? Is he trying to win Jesus' approval? Well, no, because he already has it. Jesus has already invited him down out the tree. Jesus has already shown that he knows him by name. Jesus has already spent time with him. And somewhere along the way, a revolution has happened. Not a big overthrow of the Romans, but an overthrow of someone's heart. Jesus is a revolutionary, and Zacchaeus' heart has been changed. And suddenly Zacchaeus is free. He's found the one thing, the one person who seems to make sense of everything else. And suddenly he's free. He doesn't need all his possessions anymore. He doesn't need the status that comes with them. He doesn't need to be relying on his pride and his dependence. He's free to give up half of all that he owns and give it to the poor. He's free to try and make amends for what he's done and offer to pay back anyone he's cheated. He is a free man. He's owning his past. He's taken more than he should have. And he's going to make a change. He's no longer that man. As Jesus puts it, salvation has come to this man and his house. And suddenly this man who has been an outsider for so long is on the inside. He's been welcomed home to God, home to the man God made him to be. He's like somebody who was lost and who felt lost, who's now found and home. It's an amazing story. And as we reflect on it together, I'm just aware we have all sorts of people in the room today. Some of us are here every week. Some of us might be here for the first time. Some of us recognize this story as our story. This is what happened to me. Others of us might find ourselves in a different place within the story. I wonder if there's a particular bit that you can really relate to today. Maybe it is that idea of being interested in Jesus And maybe there are one or two people here today and you've been invited to church, you've been invited to come and try this thing out, and you've got just a little bit of interest in seeing what's going on. You're so welcome. You're so welcome. Perhaps you've got some of the reservations that I reckon Zacchaeus had. You're not good enough or religious enough, or you don't come to church enough. It doesn't matter. We're so pleased you're here. We're so pleased you're joining us. If you're joining us on the live stream, we're so pleased you're with us. We'd love to journey with you a bit more. There's some cards on the seats that you can fill out if you'd like to, and then we can stay in touch with you. We run something called Alpha, which is a great way to get to understand more about Jesus and ask lots of questions, and we'd love to tell you when that's running if that would be helpful for you. Maybe it's the idea of an encounter with Jesus. Can we have that slide up, actually, the one with the 3 on? That's it, thank you. Maybe it's that idea of an encounter with Jesus that resonates with you. Maybe you're more than just a little bit interested. Maybe actually you feel a bit like Zacchaeus and you're ready to, well, Zacchaeus was in a tree. Maybe you feel more like you're sitting on the fence, but either way, to come down. Maybe you're ready to encounter, to meet with Jesus, to be in that kind of relationship with him today. Maybe you've heard that he sees you and he calls you by name and he invites you to be in a friendship with him, and you're ready to say yes. Maybe Alpha would be great for you as well, but we'll also pray in a minute and invite you, if you'd like to say that yes. Maybe it was something towards the end of the story, maybe something about that idea of a new beginning or a fresh start. And actually, I wonder if there are some of us here, and perhaps some of this language of coming home just kind of resonates. Maybe you used to come to church more, maybe you used to have a bit of a faith, maybe for whatever reason that's not so true today. Maybe you've already had a fresh start and you're here today and you're thinking, I don't deserve another one. Do you know, God's great at fresh starts. He's got as many fresh starts as we need. Perhaps that idea of freedom, actually maybe we're struggling with something that we long to be free from. And it's time just to come back again, come home again to Jesus. You know, whichever bit of the story we particularly relate to best, the truths within it are for each and every one of us. That Jesus sees you. He knows your name. He invites you to come to him. And that comes with that promise that actually when we do come to him, he continues to work in our lives to bring that freedom and that wholeness that starts now and continues for all eternity. Jesus sees you. He knows you. He invites you. He welcomes you. And he continues to journey with you. May I invite you to stand? We're just going to stand together. The band are just going to begin to play. Sorry, I should have put you back down at ease a few moments ago. My prompts weren't that clear. We are going to worship. We're going to have an opportunity to respond again, but we're just going to pray for a moment. And you might just like to close your eyes. Nobody's looking, and it just helps to shut out some of the distractions. And you might already just have a bit of a thought in your heart, or a prayer in your heart. There might be something you already want to say to God. I just have in my mind that even as we stand, maybe there's somebody here who, even as I say that, the thing in your head starts with but it can't be, but no, I can't, or but I'm not good enough. But I've stuffed up again. But I'm not, whatever that end of that sentence is. And so just a reminder again, Jesus welcomes you. And he sees you. He knew who Zacchaeus was. He wasn't under any illusions at all that he was going to eat with a chief tax collector. And he's under no illusions about you either. He knows us completely. And I'm just going to lead us in a prayer. And like I said, if you're feeling like you just want to make that prayer your own, maybe it's a prayer to recommit yourself to Jesus. Maybe it's a prayer for the first time to say, do you know what? I want in. I want this. What I've just heard about, I want that. What Lydia shared, I want that. Then you could make this prayer your own. So I'm going to pray, and I'm just going to leave a pause after each little sentence, and you can just echo it in your heart if you'd like to. Lord Jesus, thank you that you know me. You see me. You call me by name. Thank you for your invitation to be with you and be a friend of yours. Lord Jesus, I want to say yes. I want to come down and meet with you. Please, would you help me? I'm sorry for the stuff I've done that gets in the way. But I thank you that you can overcome it all. And I want to welcome you into my life and my heart today. Thank you, Jesus. Amen. And if you've prayed that prayer for the first time today, we've got a few welcome packs at the back that have got a Bible in it and some extra stuff to help you in your walk with Jesus. We're also going to have some people around who are going to have prayer lanyards on. And in a moment, as we begin to worship, if anything that we've been talking about just strikes a chord with you and you would love somebody to pray with you, you'd be so welcome. They're going to be at both sides. And you can just go and say, actually, could you pray with me? And they'd love to pray with you. I'm going to invite... Are you guys going to come back up? We're going to go straight into worship. We're going to go straight into worship. If anything of what we've been talking about you want to pick up with anyone, we've got various people with lanyards, hosting lanyards and prayer lanyards. They're the people to head for. We would love to talk some more with anybody if you felt like this time today has been impactful for you. We would love to talk about it more. If you've been coming home, if this has been part of your returning to faith, we would love to rejoice with you as well. So we're going to have a time of worship. The band are going to lead us again, and use this time however you need to. If you want to go get some prayer, get some prayer. You want to stay where you are and pray quietly, pray where you are. You want to join in with the songs, join in with the songs. This is your time with the Lord. Amen.